Quickware, 1v1, Sweet Masturbation, Liang Xiaoxiao, who was supposed to commit suicide due to cancer, was forced to bind to the canon fodder female supporting character's Quickware system due to a mistake in the drag system. In order to survive, Liang Xiaoxiao can only embark on a diligent main task under the pressure and temptation of the system. Faced with dark and difficult strategic goals, Liang Xiaoxiao went from being clumsy to adept, but ended up facing more and more villainous bosses who went crazy one by one. Liang Xiaoxiao. Requesting a holiday. Requesting a salary increase. Seeking to lie flat strategy objective. Crazy criticism of school grass, apocalyptic corpse king, arrogant aristocrat, dark stepson first aspect. Campus section second plane. Apocalyptic zombie outbreak PS. The male leads are pure psychological BT, really dark and crazy criticism, cautious in entering the three views party. Chapter 1. Difficulty strategy for student presidents, 1. You are listening at novel full.audio. Why hasn't there been any movement? Isn't this ugly monster fainting? Damn it. It's really amazing. 2 slaps hit the motionless head, but the person in the bucket remained unresponsive. Damn it, I can't stand her for a long time. Ling, you don't want her to help me for a long time. How dare she be arrogant this time? Tisk, if it weren't for Jian Xinran, this slut, I wouldn't have been so popular today. A noisy female voice echoed around her, and Liang Xiaoxiao opened her eyes. Her gaze gradually cleared from blurred to clear, and wet droplets of water dripped onto her slender eyelashes along clusters of bangs. She rubbed her eyes, her brain was in a daze, and her nose felt uncomfortable with water. At this moment, a cold male voice came out of his mind. The female supporting fast-dressing task has been bound. The host needs to successfully obtain the favorable rating of male and female protagonists Wei Xiaoqian while promoting their relationship, and prevent their blackening from becoming obstacles on the path of love. After the mechanical release of the task, 002 immediately began to reveal its true nature. His $% #**, damn it. He actually got the wrong person. A series of swear words that couldn't pass the trial popped up, and Liang Xiaoxiao's head was about to explode. Yesterday, as soon as she committed suicide, her soul came to a door. The people there referred to herself as the Time and Space Management Bureau, and as the selected newcomer, she was assigned to the Traversing Canon Ashes passers-by group, only serving as a background for the male and female protagonists. Unexpectedly, just now, when the Management Bureau was assigning tasks to her, the system suddenly made a mistake and bound her to the fast-wearing female supporting task. 002, what's going on? It was agreed that I would only use the time-traveling group as canon fodder to complete the KPI. I heard that the fast-dressing group is the most tiring, it's non-stop all year round. Liang Xiaoxiao was really anxious, playing coquettish with a soft voice. Alright, stop shouting, it's making me headache. The cool and advanced system 002 suddenly calmed down, and Gao Ling said, the task binding cannot be changed. You can accept reality. Just kidding, if someone finds out that his advanced system has made such a low-level mistake, will he still be able to get by in the future? Although the past experience of this host is indeed a headache, perhaps an unexpected choice will actually lead to better results. How could that be? I want to file a complaint against you. Sorry, my superior has closed down and the complaint is invalid. 002 finished speaking hesitantly and began to self-care and deliver memories to her. Liang Xiaoxiao is the cousin of Jian Xinran, the female protagonist of a campus literature. Jian Xinran's father was a martyr who died due to an undercover mission. His mother attached herself to a wealthy man, abandoned the young Jian Xinran, concealed the fact that she already had a daughter, and went abroad to live with her new husband. Liang Xiaoxiao's father, also known as Jian Xinran's uncle, adopted her. Liang's father was a surgeon who was often away from home, and when Liang's mother graduated from a prestigious school, she was also the school flower in her youth, always feeling proud throughout her life. I probably felt that my own daughter did not inherit her fine bloodline, so I pinned my hope on the female protagonist. I value this female lead and her niece more than my own daughter. As a typical villainous female supporting character in novels, Liang Xiaoxiao gradually blackened out and did many evil things due to her jealousy of her cousin being favored by her mother and crush. Although Liang Xiaoxiao has done many bad things, he is sincere towards the male lead Ling Muxiao. Half a year ago, Ling Muxiao was blocked in the alley by a few thugs from a vocational high school and had a fight. He couldn't resist the large number of people and was knocked unconscious by the beating. It was Liang Xiaoxiao who reported to the police and, at the critical moment when the thug leader was smashing someone's head with a bottle, rushed over to protect him. However, Liang Xiaoxiao suffered a severe blow to the head, causing retinal blood vessels to rupture and blindness in his right eye. Half a year after the surgery, he still hasn't recovered. After organizing the plot, she looked up at the three girls in the restroom. The one standing in the middle has a chestnut wave curl with deep facial features, while the other two slightly show off as passers-by. They are all wearing blue shirts and navy blue vests, with a pleated skirt in the same color scheme on the lower body. The skirt length is about 10 centimeters above the knees, and long socks paired with black leather shoes exude youthful energy. Before Liang Xiaoxiao could react to the situation, someone suddenly knocked on the door and said, "Sleeping trough, Mei Chaofeng is here. You guys hurry up. What's the rush?" The wave curled up and sneered, looking down at Liang Xiaoxiao who was lying on the ground, only to realize that he had already woken up. Jinling raised her eyebrows, crouched down and grabbed her hair, fiercely saying, "If you dare to speak up about today's incident, you know what consequences it will have." Then, the footsteps rustled away. When the bathroom quieted down, Liang Xiaoxiao stood up in anger and walked to the mirror. At first glance, I almost scared her to death. How ugly. System, come out and talk to me. The girl in front of her was slightly chubby, with bangs and freckles on her face. Her lifeless eyes made her look gloomy, and she couldn't match the word, good. Looking. 002 was left speechless by her surprised appearance, but she still comforted and said, "Her facial features are actually quite durable. If she were to slim down a bit, her skin would be better, and there was a possibility of a comeback." Liang Xiaoxiao felt like crying. She has a heavy facial control and can't accept her ugly appearance. It's okay if I look so ugly. What kind of identity breaker are you giving me? The time when she came over happened to be when Liang Xiaoxiao was being bullied by the group of girls led by Jean Linger at school. Jean Linger is also one of the female villains who can bounce around in the early stages of high school. She is very targeted at the female lead because she likes Wei Xiaoqian and her school flower title is stolen by Jian Xinran. The female protagonist is intelligent and witty, and has two loyal admirers by her side. Ling Muxiao, the strongest in martial arts, has explosive abilities with money, which is the biggest villain in this article. Wei Xiaoqian. Under their protection, Jean Linger couldn't move the female lead and had nowhere to vent her anger, so she set her sights on Liang Xiaoxiao, who was introverted and had little presence. According to the original plot, Liang Xiaoxiao chose to swallow her anger after being bullied, as she would occasionally face the bullying of that group of people. Just to remind you, this male supporting role can be considered a high-difficulty strategy target in the 3000 worlds. If you want to prevent the male lead from becoming sexually explicit, you must prevent them from having too much contact before the male lead has developed too much affection for the female lead. Got it, got it. Liang Xiaoxiao pursed her lips, her hair was now wet and she felt extremely uncomfortable. I still couldn't forget to grumble angrily, what blind man would take notice of me like this? 002, alright, as long as you can complete side quests, I'll reward you with some points. How about going to the mall to exchange for beauty value? Listening to the system's gentle and persuasive tone, Liang Xiaoxiao arrogantly rolled his eyes and said, "Do I have to take on this task? What if I can't complete it and the task fails? According to the rules, you can only be trapped here forever to complete the mission of supporting role instead of the original person." 002 sneered and said. Liang Xiaoxiao took a deep breath, supporting role's mission. In the end, she was imprisoned for attempted murder and was bullied by the prison leader to the point of biting her tongue and committing suicide. She tragically died in the dirty and messy female restroom of the prison. Take it. I can take on any task now. She shrank her neck in fear of death, feeling extremely helpless. Looking at her appearance, 002 felt heartbroken and thought, this mission is over. Wait. Go to the rooftop immediately. At this moment, Wei Xiaoqian is being instigated by his good brother to deliver a love letter to Jian Xinran soon. You have to stop him. If successful, there will be points rewards. Quickly, 002 suddenly pulled her seriously into the main plot. Chapter 2. Difficulty Strategy for Student Presidents, 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Did you make a mistake? I'm still dizzy. She spoke angrily, but her footsteps were very honest as she walked towards the rooftop. As she climbed panting and finally arrived at the rooftop of the teaching building, she was about to open the door when a figure opened it first. Who are you? How did you make such a mess? I saw a young man in a white shirt standing in front of me. The boy's tie was slightly messy, but his shoulder-length hair had been carefully groomed. He wore a black mechanical watch on his wrist, which was worth a lot at first glance. The other person seemed to be concerned, but there was a hint of mockery in their eyes. This person's name is Ji Chuan, and he is brother to Wei Xiaoqian. The two have known each other since childhood, but their personalities may seem vastly different to outsiders. A promiscuous and a superficial gentleman. None of them are good things. When she secretly looked up at the rooftop through the gap, as expected, she saw the young man wearing a white shirt, school uniform pants, and clean and tidy all over his body standing there. Across from him was a slender and beautiful girl. The two of them looked perfectly matched in appearance. Wei Xiaoqian had long legs, delicate eyebrows and deep black eyes. As he gazed at the young girl in front of him, the gentle smile at the corner of his mouth was refreshing. A gentle breeze brushed against the hem of his shirt, and a strong sense of youth rushed towards him. As Wei Xiaoqian was about to hand over the envelope, Liang Xiaoxiao immediately exclaimed, "I'm here to find Jian Xinran." Her voice alarmed the two people on the rooftop. As she squeezed past Ji Chuan, Jian Xinran immediately turned her head and exclaimed in surprise, "Xiaoxiao, what's wrong with you? Xinran, is this your friend?" After noticing Liang Xiaoxiao, Wei Xiaoqian's expression was slightly puzzled. His voice was gentle and seemed more friendly and harmless, but thinking of the evil deeds this person had done in the original book, Liang Xiaoxiao couldn't help but feel a chill from behind. As the biggest villain in the entire book, this person naturally has a strong family background, and his grades are the most outstanding. Everyone thinks he is a gentle and approachable popular male god, but in reality, those are all illusions. He used many cruel and ruthless methods to compete with the male lead for the female lead. Later, it directly led to the male lead being imprisoned for rape, causing the two to painfully separate for many years. When the male lead was imprisoned, he was only 19 years old, just entering college. Of course, the most crucial thing is that the original identity is the accomplice who slandered the male lead and raped him before reporting to the police, causing the male lead to be imprisoned. As Liang Xiaoxiao, who shares the same name as her original self, she is the daughter of the richest person in the city. She has lived for 19 years and in the first half of her life, she can be described as indulging herself recklessly, with wind and rain as the wind blows. But in the latter half of his life, he spent all his time in the hospital, his parents divorced, and he had new families. Moreover, her broken body requires surgical treatment from time to time, and living is just a burden. In the end, she couldn't endure the pain of chemotherapy and chose to commit suicide. Otherwise, someone like her who is afraid of death wouldn't have chosen to jump off a building so young. The people from the Time and Space Administration sympathized with her plight and arranged the easiest job for her. Who knew this damn 002, boasting about its advanced system, could make such a low-level mistake? I can hear it, that guy's flattened voice suddenly sounded, with a hint of warning. Liang Xiaoxiao snorted softly, I knew you could hear me, I did it on purpose. Ji Chuan saw her staring directly at Wei Xiaoqian, so he immediately reminded with a smile, hey, although my brother is quite handsome, it's best not to have any unnecessary thoughts about him. Do you understand? This person's words were filled with contempt both inside and outside, as if she had defiled Wei Xiaoqian if she dared to like him. Liang Xiaoxiao wanted to satirize a few words, but due to his current appearance, he could only blush with frustration. Jian Xinran frowned and wanted to explain something to Wei Xiaoqian, but in the end, she changed her mind and said, it's my friend. She ignored Wei Xiaoqian and came to Liang Xiaoxiao's side, wondering, what's wrong with you? Are you looking for me? Or someone is bullying you? Liang Xiaoxiao lowered her head and brewed her emotions for a while, then said in a aggrieved tone, at noon, Jean Linger and a few girls blocked me in the women's restroom, pressed my head in the bucket, punched and kicked me. I feel so painful all over. Liang Xiaoxiao's tears burst into tears in an instant, and she rolled up her sleeves in frustration. Wei Xiaoqian glanced sideways and saw the warm yellow sunlight shining on the young girl. Her plump arms were all blue and purple, and her fair skin was particularly striking in the contrast of this injury. Jian Xinran was extremely surprised. Although her relationship with her cousin had always been poor, someone bullied her, so of course she wanted to stand out. Let's go find her to settle the accounts. She pulled the person and was about to leave. Liang Xiaoxiao stood still in place, trembling and refusing to move. Forget it, I'm afraid. It's almost time for class. If you go find her at this time, she will definitely not admit it. Liang Xiaoxiao finished speaking slowly, her previously gloomy and pitiful eyes now clearly staring straight at Jian Xinran. It's almost time for class. Let's go back to the classroom. Liang Xiaoxiao had a clear goal and took Jian Xinran's hand as she walked downstairs. Jian Xinran was bewildered by her, and her cousin, whether at home or school, was quite hostile towards her. How could she suddenly make such a affectionate gesture? Wei Xiaoqian walked up to Ji Chuan at this moment, still holding the love letter that had not been delivered in time. Although his face was slightly disturbed, he was no longer prepared to continue sending the love letter. Congratulations to the host, you have earned 100 points after successfully changing the plot of Wei Xiaoqian sending love letters to the female lead. 002's voice became much gentler. Fortunately, she had some brains and knew how to call Jian Xinran away instead of directly going up to stop Wei Xiaoqian. Liang Xiaoxiao returned to the classroom before the class bell rang, and Jean Linger and her good sisters sat in the last row. Seeing her enter with this appearance, several people looked at each other with suppressed smiles, and finally looked at her with ill intentions. As soon as Liang Xiaoxiao sat down, the girl at the front table turned around and whispered, "Did Jinling bully you? When I went to the restroom, I saw her assistant blocking the door. When they came out, you came out in this way." Looking at the girl's indignant expression, Liang Xiaoxiao lazily lay on the desk, nodding and admitting. "Here you are, wipe your hair." Wu Qian took out a dry towel, her eyes full of sympathy. Liang Xiaoxiao reached out to take it and blinked his eyes, saying, "Thank you." Chapter 3. Difficulty Strategy for Student Presidents, 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When the class bell rang, Liang Xiaoxiao eagerly said to the system, "I want to take a look at them all." As soon as he finished speaking, a manually controllable screen appeared in the enclosed brain space, with several options on it. Beauty, strength, intelligence, and various functional cards require a considerable amount of points. Among them, beauty requires the least amount of points, and 100 points can be redeemed once. After closing the mall and attending half a class, Liang Xiaoxiao remembered that the male lead Ling Xiao was also in this class, and his gaze searched the classroom. The seat in the last row by the window, which originally belonged to Ling Xiao, was empty. Don't forget, there's an important plot tomorrow. Seeing that she was still indifferent and had no sense of self-awareness as a quick-wearing supporting actress, 002 urgently reminded her. Liang Xiaoxiao thought back and her eyes widened instantly. By the way, Ginchen still needs to write a love letter to Ling Xiao. Moreover, the love letter was read out on the spot, attracting ridicule from many people. There is no self-awareness to say that she is so ugly and dares to pursue the school bully. Even in the post bar, someone specifically opened a post and shamelessly pulled up the CP post between her and Ling Xiao, deliberately saying that the ugly girl was leaning against the school bully. Can the two eventually achieve success? There is still a portrait-like bet in the building, betting on how long she can win Ling Xiao. The post, which clearly carries a sense of humiliation, made me feel embarrassed to the point of hiding in the women's restroom and crying bitterly for half an hour. Ling Xiao began to take extra precautions and warned her to stay away from him in the future. Thinking of these plotlines, Liang Xiaoxiao was about to go crazy. In her past life, she was the only one who looked down on others. Who dares to look down on her? And that Jinling, who dared to look at her with that mocking look just now, according to her temper, not getting beaten up is not enough to relieve her anger. She thought with a gloomy heart, how should she retaliate and come back to relieve her anger after hearing all the little things she was thinking about. 002 had a splitting headache and said, "Hey, do you know what your main task is?" "Humph, of course I know, but as someone like me, I must report my anger on the spot, otherwise this task cannot be carried out as designated." After she finished speaking, as if she had thought of something, she smiled and said, "I remember there was something in the mall that only had 20 points, right? There is a physical education class in the afternoon, and Liang Xiaoxiao remembers that Jinling has a habit of going to the swimming pool in the gymnasium after gathering. While everyone was not in the classroom, she sneaked back alone and groped around in Jinling's classroom pocket, successfully finding the cabinet door key with a pink diamond Chanel keychain hanging on it. She glanced casually and noticed something. Tisk. Liang Xiaoxiao's lips curled up with some sarcasm, but he didn't pay much attention. He took the key to the cabinet with the name pasted on it and opened it. There was indeed a black swimsuit inside. She enthusiastically took out the itching powder she exchanged at the mall and poured it all into her swimsuit. After completing this series of pranks, he immediately closed the cabinet door, returned the key, and turned around to escape from the classroom without taking away a cloud. As soon as the back door came out, I heard a reminder from 002. The target of the strategy is approaching, please find a way to have physical contact with him. If this mission is successful, you can earn 50 points. What the hell? How come there are tasks again? She was puzzled when she saw a tall figure appearing straight ahead. I saw Wei Xiaoqian holding a pile of test papers and walking towards this side. When he saw her, there was no waves in his eyes. Liang Xiaoxiao didn't have time to think about it, so he stepped forward and blocked his way. Wei Xiaoqian raised his eyebrows, seemingly surprised. The girl had a thick bangs, and her dark pupils were now clear and bewildered. "Classmate, what's up?" Wei Xiaoqian bent down, close to her, and the warm yellow light outside the window hit his face, creating a smoother and sharper jawline that was already superior. Liang Xiaoxiao stared intently at his hand with a clear goal, eager to try. "I have a request that is easy for you, but for me, saving a person's life is better than building a level 7 pagoda." She finished speaking seriously, wanting to grab his hand while he wasn't paying attention. As a result, the person quickly raised their hands, took a step back, raised their thick eyebrows lightly, as if seeing through all her careful thoughts. Liang Xiaoxiao looked at him in surprise, both shy and angry. Damn it, this person's reaction is also fast enough. Classmate, what are you doing? This person's amber eyes were lazy with a hint of coldness. Looking at her, their gaze was like a cold venomous snake, spiraling up her neck in danger. A dangerous suffocation suddenly surged in. Liang Xiaoxiao has never had the experience of actively getting close to someone but being rejected. First, he cursed him in his heart for not knowing his appearance, and then he rushed over and hugged his thin waist without stopping. After hugging the person, she proudly tightened her wrist, but the other person's body visibly stiffened for a moment. Wei Xiaoqian has a high-end and elegant fragrance on his clothes after cleaning, which is quite pleasant to smell. His chest is hard, and there is a thin and powerful feeling around his waist. Congratulations, the task has been completed, points plus 50. 002 felt that he underestimated this host a bit. Under the opponent's powerful aura, he could still rush forward without thinking and forcibly complete the task. Courage is commendable. Soon, Liang Xiaoxiao was pushed away by a strong force. Don't be too obvious about the intention of disdain. Vaguely, Wei Xiaoqian seemed to chuckle lightly, but his tone seemed to seep through no matter how he listened. Liang Xiaoxiao had a loud alarm in her mind, and without saying anything, she ran away. Subconsciously tell her not to turn back. In the last 2 classes, Jean Linger didn't come to class. It was said that she was a bit scared while swimming, and some even asked if she had come into contact with something unclean. Liang Xiaoxiao silently felt relieved and relieved. At night, after the evening self-study, Liang Xiaoxiao directly used his pocket money to take a taxi back to the Liang family. The Liang family lives in a certain community 5 kilometers away from the school. Liang's father is still in the hospital, while Liang's mother went out to play mahjong with her little sisters. Jian Xinran's room was lit up, and she was probably studying hard with the lights on again. She was able to squeeze into class 1 of grade 3 at Yalong High School, with a large portion of her performance being exceptional in the final exams of grade 2, as well as a lucky bonus. In order to not disappoint the expectations of her parents, Liang, and her own future, she had to spend more time and effort than ordinary people. Liang Xiaoxiao's grades are average, so she can only make ends meet in class 4, and her parents seem to have little hope for her. After closing the door, Liang Xiaoxiao returned to his desk and sat down, picked up a pen and paper, and began writing love letters. I picked up my pen for a while and couldn't hold back a word. According to the original plot, the content of the love letter is not short. After hesitating for a while, she decided to learn from it. At the same time, the little pig doll on her table suddenly stood up. As an advanced system, 002 has the function of attaching itself to any item in the real world. The doll walked arrogantly to her and said, "You're not planning to plagiarize someone else, are you?" When she was going to physical education class today, she found a pink love letter outside the trash can of the teaching building, which was not signed inside. So she had a sudden idea and put it away. Since it's something that has been thrown away, it's reasonable for her to waste it, isn't it? Liang Xiaoxiao confidently said, "I don't have any experience. Is borrowing too much?" After speaking, she opened the anonymous love letter, browsed through it from beginning to end, and began writing with great enthusiasm. Chapter 4. Difficulty Strategy for Student Presidents, 4. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. After witnessing the entire process, 002 sneered, "Not changing a single word is also called borrowing." Liang Xiaoxiao pretended to be deaf and mute, and immediately went to wash up after completing the task. Before going to bed, Jian Xinran knocked on the door and said she had cooked some noodles, asking if she would eat them. Liang Xiaoxiao was lying on the bed with a facial mask on her face. Hearing the words, she shouted, "No, I want to lose weight." As the words fell, something immediately came to mind. At the moment, she has enough points to exchange for that beauty pill. So, she happily asked 002 to help her exchange 100 points for beauty pills in the mall, and after eating them, she fell asleep beautifully. The next day, after Liang Xiaoxiao woke up, she changed into her school uniform and went to the bathroom in the living room to wash up. Jian Xinran usually woke up earlier than her, so when she woke up, Jian Xinran had already left early. While rinsing her mouth, she looked at herself in the mirror, her originally chubby face noticeably losing a circle. The freckles have decreased and the skin is noticeably softer. She quickly tidied up herself, found the weight scale, and stood up to find that she had lost a whole 8 pounds. Liang Xiaoxiao was extremely surprised and immediately decided to lift up her old-fashioned bangs and transform herself well. However, result 002 reminded. The function of Meidiwan was quite effective on the first day, but if you suddenly change your appearance and others see it, do you think you will be taken away as a monster? Liang Xiaoxiao thought of that scene and immediately dispelled the excitement in her heart. She complained coquettishly, "So what should I do?" Finally, 002 asked her to put on a pair of casual pants under her school uniform skirt, covering her legs. Her school uniform was already wider than others, so without careful examination, it was impossible to distinguish the fact that she suddenly lost weight. Upon arriving at the school, Liang Xiaoxiao prepared to enter the school gate. As a result, from a distance, she saw the outstanding young man wearing a red student union armband on his arm standing at the school gate, checking his appearance and tardiness. I almost forgot that Wei Xiaoqian is still the president of the student union. Liang Xiaoxiao couldn't help but think, besides everything else, Wei Xiaoqian's face is really handsome. No wonder the female lead was confused by him in the early stages. She walked briskly towards the school direction. Halfway through, she suddenly realized something was wrong. Touching my chest, it was bare and I forgot to wear the school badge. As she watched everyone else enter wearing school badges, she hesitated for a while and looked at Wei Xiaoqian's smiling face, feeling a bit hesitant to go over. If he catches her, according to this person's cautious nature in the original work, she will definitely not be easily let go. After some thought, she still followed the road and arrived at the wall on the other side of the school. Behind it was a hill, deserted and a good place to sneak into the school. Liang Xiaoxiao first took off her backpack and threw it in, then climbed up the wall with both hands, and her legs began to push upwards desperately. It's probably because the wall is too slippery and my feet have been struggling to climb up for half a day. Finally, feeling a bit exhausted, she decided to let her legs hang on the wall, her body comically stuck there, ready to catch her breath before speaking. At this moment, a figure on the side suddenly climbed up quickly, then jumped with both feet and landed quickly. A set of actions flows smoothly. The young man's back was facing her, and Liang Xiaoxiao was about to ask for help. However, when the young man turned his head and showed a handsome but indifferent face, she instantly fell silent. Isn't this the male lead Ling Muxiao whom I haven't seen all day yesterday? After turning his head to look at her, he coldly turned around and left without any intention of helping. Liang Xiaoxiao didn't expect him either. He was lifting his foot and continuing to climb up when suddenly a voice with a smile came from below. Do you need any help? She looked down and saw Wei Xiaoqian wearing his navy blue school uniform jacket, with a tie meticulously paired with a white shirt. He took off the student union armband from his arm at some point. There was no abnormality in his clear and handsome face, as if he had forgotten everything about the restroom yesterday. Liang Xiaoxiao's lips twitched slightly, and he reached out his hand half believing and half doubting, then. I'll trouble you. The person raised their signature smile again and was about to grab her hand when Liang Xiaoxiao suddenly regretted it. What if this guy takes the opportunity to retaliate? Forget it. I'll do it myself. After speaking, she had already climbed onto the wall with all her might. After sitting firmly on top, she looked down at the height of over 2 meters below, swallowed her saliva, and mustered the courage to jump down with her eyes. As she fell to the ground, she was grinning and feeling uncomfortable when suddenly a pair of white sneakers appeared in front of her. She looked up along her towering long legs and met those faint, slightly playful eyes. "Did you sneak in because you didn't wear a school badge?" He spoke with a perfectly normal inquiry. After patting her buttocks, Liang Xiaoxiao stood up and said pitifully, "Yes, I'm too anxious to go out. I'm afraid I'll lose points, that's why I came up with this plan." She clenched her skirt tightly with both hands, looking very nervous. Wei Xiaoqian curled his lips slightly and said, seemingly considerate, "You are Xinran's friend, so naturally I will turn a blind eye. It's okay if you went in directly at that time." Steadily climbing walls to enter and exit the campus was a serious violation of school rules, and it's hard for me to cover it up. Liang Xiaoxiao looked at him pretending to be difficult and thought to himself, "If you want to punish, punish. What kind of disguise do you want?" Although she thought so in her heart, a sweet smile still appeared on her face. "It's okay, I won't make you difficult, just remember my name." She had a heroic expression on her face, as if she was really afraid of him making things difficult, and there was still a hint of shyness in her eyes. Her peach blossom eyes were black, bright, and clear. When she gazed shyly at someone, it would have created a deep emotional illusion. Coupled with deliberate performance, that love became even stronger. After Wei Xiaoqian was slightly stunned for a second, his eyes suddenly became indifferent. He took out the notebook in his hand and quickly wrote down her name with a flying dragon and phoenix dance. Then he said, "Be careful not to climb the wall again next time. If you accidentally break your arm or leg, it would be so bad." Seeing him turn his back and take a big step away, Liang Xiaoxiao stayed in place in a fit of anger. What's going on with this suddenly cold attitude? Isn't her performance just a success? Although her appearance is not very good now, she shouldn't be like a snake or a scorpion, right? Liang Xiaoxiao couldn't figure it out and returned to the classroom. As a result, she was only halfway through self-study when her homeroom teacher called her to the office and gave her a thorough education on climbing the wall. Finally, he was fined to write a self-reflection on the spot. She painfully moved a chair and sat next to the homeroom teacher, her mind blank. The homeroom teacher found it so difficult for her to write a self-criticism, and of course, she couldn't help but scold her in the end. Chapter 5. Difficulty Strategy for Student Presidents, 5. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After finishing his reflection and returning to the classroom, Liang Xiaoxiao secretly observed Ling Muxiao's seat in search of an opportunity to leave the plot. This person climbed the wall with her in the morning, but luckily avoided a disaster. I don't know if Wei Xiaoqian did it intentionally. She was propping up her chin to observe Ling Muxiao sleeping there when Wu Qian in front suddenly turned around and returned the eraser to her. At the same time, she looked at her and said, "Xiao Xiao, how do I think your skin has suddenly improved a lot and your freckles have decreased?" Liang Xiaoxiao raised the corner of her mouth with some happiness and said, "Really? Maybe it's because she recently applied some skincare products." "What skincare products can also remove freckles?" Wu Qian asked in surprise. "I'm not sure if it was given by relatives at home." Upon hearing this, Wu Qian observed her in surprise for a moment before turning back to continue listening to the class. The second class ended, and Liang Xiaoxiao finally found the right time. Ling Muxiao went out, and there were not many people in the classroom. She took out the packaged love letter from the table, got up quickly and decisively walked to Ling Muxiao's desk, and deliberately placed the love letter on a very obvious table. When she was about to return to her desk, Su Ji, who was sitting in the last row of the class and had the lowest grades, passed by her side. With his sharp eyes, he noticed the love letter and immediately showed a playful smile. "Did you write it?" He watched Liang Xiaoxiao finish asking and successfully saw a panicked crimson on her face. Su Ji, as if he had discovered some international news, immediately excitedly raised the love letter and loudly said, "Oh, Liang Xiaoxiao from our class has written a love letter for Ling Muxiao." Coincidentally, Jean Linger, who had wrapped herself tightly, heard this as she walked in. She was originally restless about her sudden itching all over while swimming yesterday, and when she woke up in the morning, she found that she was allergic all over. In an instant, my attention was diverted. Liang Xiaoxiao likes Ling Muxiao. Oh my god, it's so funny. Jean Linger covered her mouth and giggled, then immediately said in the commanding language, "Open it up and take a look." What did Liang Xiaoxiao write? Su Zhiban was the licking dog following Jean Linger, and the goddess ordered him to do so immediately. I saw him open the envelope and, driven by Liang Xiaoxiao's red-eyed pursuit, read aloud out of fear that someone might not hear him. "Hello, Ling Muxiao, I don't know when my gaze has been unable to shift away from you." When he ran down the hallway and recited the first paragraph, other classmates in the hallway also crowded around. The crowd isolated Liang Xiaoxiao, forcing her to listen to him continue reciting. "Your presence always makes my blood boil. Every time I see your adorable face, I want to hug you tightly and kiss your eyebrows. I swear, I have never had such a strange feeling towards anyone before. I think I have fallen in love with you. Ha ha ha, cute face. I'm really impressed, Ling Muxiao. Cute." Su Zhixiao's tears were almost streaming down his face, as he covered his stomach and looked breathless. In the crowded crowd, Ji Chuan and Wei Xiaoqian have just returned from the restroom. With the excitement watching, Ji Chuan naturally couldn't move his feet. He looked at Liang Xiaoxiao's awkward and embarrassed face and said in a theatrical tone, "She likes Ling Muxiao." Originally, the two of them didn't pay much attention to the beginning of the sentence, but as the love letter continued to be read, Wei Xiaoqian's face became even more strange. "How do I listen? It's a bit familiar to me." Ji Chuan turned his head in confusion to look at his good brother beside him. I saw Wei Xiaoqian half squinting his eyes and staring at the young girl in the crowd who seemed to be about to cry, his expression already covered with a layer of frost. "No matter whether you will accept my confession or not, I will bless you and appreciate you. In my heart, you will always be the shining, strong, intelligent, and brave girl. Girl." When the girl recited this sentence, the people around her burst into laughter like thunder. When did Ling Muxiao become a woman? I don't know who laughed and let out a teasing laugh. Liang Xiaoxiao's face stiffened and she began to feel remorseful. I copied it so smoothly that I forgot to change the keywords. Just as she was facing so many people's teasing and laughter, gritting her teeth, and her face naturally turning red without acting, a faint male voice suddenly sounded behind her. "Liang Xiaoxiao, when did I offend you?" She twitched her lips and turned to look at Ling Muxiao, who was standing behind her at an unknown time with a cold and dark expression. "That. Listen to me explain." She blushed with embarrassment and was almost suffocated to death. "Okay, you say." He nodded leisurely, his sharp gaze as if she could transform into a knife and chop her off immediately if she didn't give a reasonable explanation. Liang Xiaoxiao swallowed his saliva with a pleasing smile and said, "Have you ever heard of clay sculpture powder?" Ling Muxiao said, "What kind of thing?" "Ha ha ha. Clay sculpture powder. Liang Xiaoxiao, you're too funny. Even the fans who understand have shed tears." "What do you mean? Why didn't I understand?" Everyone has different reactions, and only a small number of people know the meaning of this statement. Simply put, in her eyes, Ling Muxiao's gender has already been changed. As stated in the love letter, he is just a cute girl. Ling Muxiao knew from the reactions of others that this was definitely not a good thing. He sneered and turned around before leaving without looking back. Liang Xiaoxiao hesitated to say anything and wanted to make up for it, but was powerless. What should we do? 002, is this plot really off-center? Don't worry, it's pretty good. What did you say yesterday? Don't keep burying your head in copying. 002 gave her a contemptuous education. Liang Xiaoxiao was at fault first and didn't dare to refute this time. Just as the excitement gradually dissipated and she was about to return to the classroom, a figure suddenly walked up to her. Liang Xiaoxiao, I have a question for you. Ji Chuanpi stared at her with a smile on his face and said, Excuse me, was your love letter written by yourself? Liang Xiaoxiao was instantly vigilant, and she noticed Wei Xiaoqian standing not far away with an expressionless face, feeling a sense of foreboding in her heart. What's wrong? Her eyes were innocent, as if she had no idea what she had done wrong. Okay, let's find a quiet place to chat. As Ji Chuan spoke, he lifted his arm and placed it on her shoulder, leading her forward in the corridor in a threatening manner. Wei Xiaoqian seemed to have anticipated this earlier and walked alone at the forefront. Throughout the process, he had no communication with Liang Xiaoxiao. After Ji Chuan took her to the rooftop, he found Wei Xiaoqian leaning against the fence, taking out a mint candy box from his pocket. With his slender fingers, he gently peeled off the lid, poured out one in the palm of his hand, and put it into his mouth with great skill. He looked up at her while quietly eating candy without saying anything. I'm curious how the content of your love letter is exactly the same as what I'm going to give Jane Xinran. After a while, Wei Xiaoqian finally spoke up and the silence was broken. Liang Xiaoxiao widened her eyes and looked at him incredulously. Chapter 6. Difficulty Strategy for Student Presidents, 6. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Is that your love letter? Seeing her shocked expression not seeming to be fake, Wei Xiaoqian lowered his eyebrows and eyes, his tongue pressed against the mint-flavored candy in his cheek, and his smile was inexplicable. So, did you indeed copy the content of my love letter to confess to Ling Muxiao? From Liang Xiaoxiao's perspective, the smile of the villain is really a bit scary. She struggled and said, I didn't know it was your love letter. I picked it up on the ground yesterday. Ji Chuan looked at her speechlessly and said, You have to copy other people's love letters. Do you really like Ling Muxiao? Liang Xiaoxiao lowered her head and pushed the frame of the mirror, her face turning pale as earth. Alright, let's figure out the situation and you can leave. Ji Chuan didn't really want to argue with a girl when he saw this. He just murmured, I'm not even willing to send out what I've been writing so hard. I'm really being plagiarized. What's this all about? Upon hearing this, Liang Xiaoxiao glanced at him with some surprise. Did Ji Chuan help write the love letter? Will Wei Xiaoqian even fake this kind of thing? Liang Xiaoxiao looked inexplicably at Wei Xiaoqian not far away, thinking to himself, no wonder he could only play as a supporting actor and couldn't catch up with the female lead. It seemed to have noticed the disdain in her eyes, and Wei Xiaoqian glanced at her with a slightly raised eyebrow, with a hint of scrutiny. She immediately waved goodbye like a frightened rabbit, and without hesitation, turned around and ran away. This person is quite interesting. As soon as Liang Xiaoxiao left, Ji Chuan stared at the direction she was leaving and laughed out loud, then turned his head to look at Wei Xiaoqian. This week's holiday, take Jane Xinran out to play. How about I make an appointment for you? Whatever. After Wei Xiaoqian finished speaking quietly, he took steps and left the rooftop. Ji Chuan followed behind him, unsure for a moment whether he liked or disliked Jane Xinran. Saying he likes it is rare for him to take the initiative to do something. Saying he doesn't like it, Ji Chuan caught him paying too much attention to Jane Xinran several times, patiently teaching her how to do exercises, and standing up when someone bullies Jane Xinran. He has never seen other girls have these benefits before. This time he helped write a love letter to encourage Wei Xiaoqian to send it out, but he didn't expect him to agree. What's even more unexpected is that in the end, even if the love letter couldn't be sent out, it was picked up by Liang Xiaoxiao and transferred to Ling Muxiao's place. On Friday, the holiday was early, and Liang Xiaoxiao and Jane Xinran almost walked back home. Liang's mother is a well-dressed middle-aged woman with outstanding features. Although she has fine lines at the corners of her eyes, it is not difficult to see how beautiful and charming she was when she was young. She had Jane Xinran sit beside her, whispering something from the sidelines. I met that student Wei during the parent-teacher meeting. He is a smart child and also the first in the grade. It's not a bad thing for you to communicate and interact with such students more. Do you understand? Liang Xiaoxiao walked in, like an air person, listening to their conversation. At the school's parent-teacher meeting, Liang's mother felt ashamed of her own daughter and went to Jian Xinran's class. Liang's father is full of his own career and doesn't care about anything at home. Liang Xiaoxiao is usually alone on his side. Unfortunately, this original body is clearly an only child, yet she wants to be separated from her own maternal love. In this way of thinking, it is understandable that she has turned black. Liang Xiaoxiao snorted coldly in her heart as she passed by the living room and returned to her own room as if there was no one around. After all, the plot is not necessary, and she is too lazy to deal with her biased mother and indifferent father at home. The next day, when Liang Xiaoxiao stood on the weight scale, she found that she had lost 2 pounds again, and the key was that her skin had become much lighter and whiter. She looked happily in the mirror and praised the beauty pill fiercely. 002's tone was very provocative. What's so surprising? The effect of body beauty pills is that every day they will reduce the number of flaws on your body, restoring your beauty to the extreme. I have changed so much now, but I have to face others with that rustic look every day. It's too frustrating. Liang Xiaoxiao said with his hands on his hips, I don't care. Today, I'm going to dress up well and go out and have fun. Do whatever you say. She immediately went to open the wardrobe, and now she's wearing much larger clothes than before. Moreover, it's hard to pick out a single piece of clothing from a cabinet. Liang's mother actually gave her a lot of pocket money, most of which was saved by her original body. Her original body had no friends and was not social, so there was hardly any useful use for those pocket money. So, after finishing breakfast at home, she went out alone to go shopping happily. I strolled around a certain commercial street and bought 2 sets of dresses and autumn clothes. She changed into one of them and threw the old clothes directly at the clothing store without any preparation. As soon as the result came out, 002 said, just to remind you, tonight the female lead will go to the bar with Wei Xiaoqian to play. This is the key plot point, you'd better prepare in advance. They're going out to play, what can I do? Liang smiled and pursed his lips, his face filled with displeasure and excitement. Despite that, Liang Xiaoxiao arrived at the 1-kilometer bar at the prompt of 002 at night. At this moment, under the intoxicating neon light, Jian Xinran and her friend Qin Shuang sat on the sofa next to the wall in the bar. In addition to them, there are also many classmates from the school. Among the crowd, Ji Chuan and Wei Xiaoqian are naturally the most eye-catching beings. When it comes to character, the two are clearly two extremes, but unfortunately they have become inseparable good friends, which is something that many people are puzzled about. Jian Xinran sat beside Wei Xiaoqian, feeling a bit awkward. When Ji Chuan asked her out, she was still hesitant, but Qin Shuang kept muttering to her side. It is said that Wei Xiaoqian is so excellent that many girls cannot find opportunities to get close to him. They have all taken the initiative to invite him, but of course, they cannot refuse. I don't know which sentence poked her, so my mind quickly agreed. Actually, not long after, she regretted it a bit and felt like she shouldn't agree. Wei Xiaoqian's gaze fell on her, seemingly sensing her nervousness. He leaned over and asked with concern, "Is it cold? I'll have someone bring you a blanket." Today the temperature is low, but Jian Xinran is wearing a short skirt with her slender legs exposed, which is particularly eye-catching. She asked in confusion, "Is there a blanket here?" He smiled gently and said, "My driver happens to be outside." After finishing speaking, Wei Xiaoqian took out his phone and dialed the number. About 10 minutes later, a man in a suit and leather shoes quickly appeared. "Young master, which lady should I give it to?" The driver's gaze swept over the three girls present, feeling a bit uncertain for a moment. Qin Shuang watched the scene with starry eyes beside her, her excited cheeks turning red. This scene is too idle drama. Chapter 7. Difficulty Strategy for Student Presidents, 7. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Give it to her. Wei Xiaoqian lifted his chin towards Jian Xinran, his tone natural. The man immediately nodded and took the blanket out of the LV packaging bag, handing it to Jian Xinran. Jian Xinran's expression was calm, but her heart pounded and accelerated. She lowered her head and looked at the brand logo on the blanket in surprise, gently stroking it with her palm. The soft touch was unforgettable. After the man in the suit left, Jian Xinran whispered her gratitude to Wei Xiaoqian. He gazed at her with a gentle smile and said, "As long as you like it." Jian Xinran's cheeks turned even redder, and just as she was about to find a topic to talk to Wei Xiaoqian, the band on stage began to perform. At the same time, Liang Xiaoxiao successfully walked into the door of the bar. Looking at her outfit, although 002 was a bit worried, she didn't say anything. Let a girl who loves beauty extremely dress up all day, no one can bear it. Forget it, let her be reckless once. According to the original plot, the reason why Jian Xinran developed a liking for Wei Xiaoqian was that today at the bar, after the band performance, he borrowed someone else's equipment and performed a piano piece. Which girl has never imagined that one day she will meet her own Prince Charming? Wei Xiaoqian's move directly hit the female lead's heart. After a period of flirtation between the two, Jian Xinran repeatedly felt the difference in family background between herself and Wei Xiaoqian, so she decided to give up that faint affection and instead became increasingly entangled with the male lead Ling Muxiao. Liang Xiaoxiao casually thought about what to do later to naturally stop Wei Xiaoqian's performance. She squeezed into the crowd and politely declined several bad guys before finally finding the figures of Wei Xiaoqian and others. Unfortunately, at this moment, the band's performance had also ended. As Wei Xiaoqian was about to stand up and take the stage, Liang Xiaoxiao clenched his fists. 002 was about to find a way to disrupt Wei Xiaoqian's plan by performing a show on stage, but the next second she saw that the little fool had already left the spot. Like a small missile, it was launched directly. She rushed up to Wei Xiaoqian and stopped him, then confidently looked at him and said, "You need to come with me." What? Wei Xiaoqian looked down at the girl in front of him in confusion. 002 fell directly to the ground. Those who didn't know thought it was plainclothes police coming to the bar to sweep. Huang came. She ran away without saying a word, pulling the person. Behind, Ji Chuan was completely bewildered, and everyone else was also discussing, not knowing who the girl who suddenly appeared was. And her whole face was just blocked by Wei Xiaoqian's back, so she couldn't even see what the girl really looked like. She could only be seen wearing a tight black dress, with her fair and straight legs and beautiful high-heeled sandals. Under the psychedelic neon lights, the girl's skin was so white that it seemed to glow. Qin Shuang's face looked a bit ugly as she turned her head to look at her friend. Jian Xinran squeezed the blanket on her lap, but there was no other emotion on her face. In the narrow alley at the back door of the bar, the light is extremely dim. Liang Xiaoxiao stood in front of Wei Xiaoqian, looking at him with clear eyes and saying, "Hey, I see you look pretty good. Can you give me your contact information so I can contact you another day?" "Contact me? What do you want to do?" He naturally leaned against the wall, took out a box of mint candy from his pocket, opened the lid, but didn't eat it. His casual tone had a hint of laziness. The gentle breeze blew by, and the girl's cold white cheeks fluttered slightly with scattered hair. She reached out and casually pulled her hair behind her ears. Her small ears, under the projection of the light, were even more translucent and pink-white. She has a pair of beautiful eyes, delicate facial features, and tender skin that makes one want to pinch it. Her body also emits a tempting fragrance. The ambiguous sound of music in the bar was faintly heard, making the already obscure atmosphere even more peculiar. "What do you care about me?" Anyway, please give me your contact information as soon as possible. After looking at him arrogantly, she took out her phone and gestured for him to quickly enter her number. Extremely domineering and arrogant, I don't know where the confidence comes from. He looked at her with an indifferent gaze, probably bored, wanting to see what other person could do to surprise him. He actually entered his phone number. Alright, I will often harass you. Also, please stay away from the girl sitting next to you just now, you're not suitable. After Liang Xiaoxiao finished speaking, he seemed to feel that he didn't have enough strength. When he returned his phone, he solemnly added, she'll take you. Wei Xiaoqian chuckled softly and examined her with interest. Conquer me. How did you tell? Anyway, you believe me, I'm all for your own good. She mysteriously lowered her voice. Just then, her phone suddenly shook, as if someone had sent a message. Take it up and see, it's a thank that you message from Liang Xiaoxiao. Before coming here, she sent a message to Liang Xiaoxiao telling him that Xianyan would come here. I believe that by now, the female lead should have been taken away by the male lead. Liang Xiaoxiao gave a thumbs up for his cleverness and wit, raised his lips in satisfaction, and looked at Wei Xiaoqian as he retired, saying, I'm leaving now. Goodbye. Before he could react again, she waved her hand and turned around before quickly leaving. Wei Xiaoqian stayed in place for a while, carefully pondering the beautiful but somewhat familiar face, and only returned to the bar after confirming that he had not seen the other person. The position that originally belonged to Jian Xinran has now become Jean Linger. These days, due to allergies, she has been wearing a mask and long pants every day, afraid of showing her ugly side in front of him. Now that her allergy is over, she certainly won't miss this opportunity to show her face by his side. At this moment, she looked shyly at Wei Xiaoqian, as if she had 1,000 words to say to him. It's this kind of friendly look again, dull and uninteresting. From childhood to adulthood, he had seen countless gazes directed at him, and as he did so many times, he began to feel disgusted and nauseous. Even with impatience in his heart, as the most perfect student union president in the eyes of the public, Wei Xiaoqian still did not show any emotions. Just asked in a low voice, where is Xinran? Upon hearing Jian Xinran's name, Jean Linger's face instantly changed. Ji Chuan said, Liang Xiaoxiao just made a trip. Compared to this, he actually cares more about what Wei Xiaoqian and that girl did just now. Liang Xiaoxiao. Wei Xiaoqian lightly tugged at the corner of his mouth, with a hint of mockery. Although his current favorability towards Jian Xinran is not enough to make him do anything to his rival, it is still quite displeasing that some people always come out of nowhere without realizing the truth. After leaving the bar, Ji Chuan kept inquiring about what the girl who had just taken Wei Xiaoqian away had said to him. Unfortunately, Wei Xiaoqian was too tight-lipped and only said that he didn't know each other either. At 10 o'clock, Wei Xiaoqian returned to the empty villa and was about to go upstairs when the lights in the living room suddenly lit up. A woman dressed as an elite strode in from the door, wearing Bluetooth earphones and still whispering something in a cold voice. If you're still late like today next time, then it's better to cancel this superficial date as soon as possible. Chapter 8. Difficulty Strategy for Student Presidents, 8. You are listening at novelfull.audio. You are busy with your work. Am I too idle? The woman sneered and mocked, probably because the other person's attitude was also bad. When they didn't agree, they hung up the phone. She looked up and saw her son, but her indifferent expression did not change at all. She only spoke, go back to your room early to rest, and come with me to visit the old man's house tomorrow. Wei Xiaoqian sneered and curled his lips, nodded before turning and going upstairs. As soon as I returned to the room, my phone vibrated. Take it out and it's a text message. Remember what I said today, stay away from Jian Xinran, she really beats you. Haha. He playfully pressed out the phone screen with his eyes, but he didn't turn the number black. Monday. After returning to school, Liang Xiaoxiao never met Wei Xiaoqian throughout the morning. Until the first class in the afternoon, Liang Xiaoxiao returned from outside and suddenly had a pink headband on his wrist. Many young students in the class noticed and began to discuss in groups of 3 or 5. After all, as the school bully, Liang Xiaoxiao always has a group of people to observe and pay attention to no matter what he does. Liang Xiaoxiao looked at the familiar headband and naturally recognized that it was still worn on Jian Xinran's head yesterday. Now she instantly remembered the plot triggered by this headband. In the afternoon physical education class, while running circles, Liang Xiaoxiao, as a dark supporting actress, could no longer hide her jealousy and knocked the female lead to the ground. The rubber track on the playground worn through the female lead's knee, causing her to bleed uncontrollably. The male lead appeared and pushed her away, holding the female lead and rushing towards the school clinic. And Wei Xiaoqian also witnessed the whole process of her mischief with his own eyes. Thinking of this damn plot, Liang Xiaoxiao began to get restless again. She was lying on the table wanting to take a nap when suddenly the table was hit by someone. In a bad mood, she opened her eyes and saw Jinling sitting opposite her, with her feet still stepping on her table, smiling with a malicious expression on her face. "Hello, I have something I would like to ask for your help. How about going out with me?" Although Liang Xiaoxiao was unhappy in her heart, she nodded in agreement. Seeing her wimp appearance, Jinling sneered with disdain, and then took her little sisters out. Liang Xiaoxiao also stood up and followed Wu Qian's worried gaze. After a group of people arrived at the quiet corner of the school, Jinling turned around and looked at her with her arms around her chest. "I have a newly purchased necklace here. Can you help me find a way to put it in Jian Xinran's cabinet?" She took out a gorgeous diamond necklace, and Liang Xiaoxiao carefully examined it before asking, "This one should be genuine, right?" As the words fell, Jinling's face instantly turned white. She stuttered and said, "What? What do you mean? Don't be nervous, I'll just ask casually." Liang Xiaoxiao said innocently, "Seeing that you're sweating profusely, those who don't know think you're really a fake." Jinling saw a hint of cunning in her eyes, and her heart became even more uncertain. She turned her head to look at the sisters group behind her and said coldly, "You go first, I'll talk to her alone." Several girls looked at each other, but in the end, they obediently left. After only 2 people were left in the entire aisle, Jinling suddenly walked forward and grabbed Liang Xiaoxiao's neck, forcing her to ask, "What do you know?" Liang Xiaoxiao frowned and pushed the person away with force, feeling displeased as he said, "You have a handle in my hands now. How dare you even move? I have observed that the famous brands you use are all high imitation, bags, pendants, bracelets. This necklace is indeed genuine. To frame Jian Xinran, it can be considered that you have put in a lot of effort." Upon being exposed by her like this, Jinling's entire expression turned pale, but she still had to maintain a calm rebuttal on her face. "Are you saying it's fake or fake? Just a poor bumpkin, what do you know about luxury brands? I don't understand, why don't we find a professional to judge?" Liang Xiaoxiao walked forward and lightly patted Jinling's shoulder, her crisp voice tinged with a hint of mockery. 002 rarely praised this and said, "Well done, you have a bit of a brain." "Nonsense, I need you to say it." Liang Xiaoxiao retorted and then looked at Jinling, who looked flustered. "As for me, I don't have time to play around with you. As long as you don't provoke me, we can be safe together. As for how you will deal with Jian Xinran, it's none of my business. Don't bother me, do you understand? Swear, as long as I don't provoke you, you won't tell me about my affairs." Jinling gritted her teeth tightly, her expression tense. Her family is not considered wealthy, at most middle class. In order to maintain vanity in face, she bought many fake goods mixed with some genuine ones to impersonate the young lady. "I thought no one would notice, but unexpectedly, I overturned the car at Liang Xiaoxiao's place. I keep my word. I won't argue with you about your past bullying. Do you still want me to swear for you?" Liang Xiaoxiao rolled his eyes and then threw down the worried Jinling, walking up the steps at the corner to leave. She walked forward with great strides and was about to reach the vicinity of the teaching building when a figure suddenly appeared. Unexpectedly, her head hit the other person's chest, and her glasses were all crooked. The forehead was hurting, and the other person's concerned tone had already sounded. "Are you okay?" Liang Xiaoxiao looked up at the young man in front of him, and Wei Xiaoqian had a smile on his lips, his affectionate eyes gentle as water. She stared at him without blinking and said, "It's okay." Just as she was about to straighten her glasses, he was also preparing to leave. In an instant, he didn't know what was on his mind. His gaze shifted to her face and he spoke again, "Actually, if you don't wear glasses, you should look much better." "What? Can you see how you look without glasses?" He smiled and made a request. Liang Xiaoxiao guessed, did this guy recognize her? Although it's okay to recognize it. Under his serious gaze, she lightly took off her glasses at the corner of her mouth, opened her eyes wide, and stared straight at him. Her eyes were typical peach blossom shaped, with slightly upturned ends and a clear and alluring glow. Just the thick bangs blocking her forehead, coupled with those black framed glasses worn all day, made her look a bit tacky, making people overlook her eyes. "Is that okay?" Liang Xiaoxiao finished speaking softly and put on his glasses again. He curved his mouth with an inexplicable curve, released his hand that was imprisoning her shoulders, and turned over to signal that she could leave. "Did he recognize you?" 002 spoke coldly. Liang Xiaoxiao rolled her beautiful white eyes and said, "How do I know? Even if I recognize it, what would happen? Not to mention that, for the task that Jean Linger just asked you to do, according to the original content, you were helpful." "What? Why didn't you just say it?" Liang Xiaoxiao's eyes widened. "You rejected too quickly, how would I have the opportunity to remind you?" 002 said speechlessly, "And I thought you remembered the plot. That old book is so long, how can I remember everything?" Liang Xiaoxiao is extremely straightforward and confident. 002 remained silent for a while before telling her the key plot that would happen later. In the original work, you stole the key to the female protagonist's cabinet door and put the necklace inside. However, Wei Xiaoqian saw it and in order to protect the female protagonist, he transferred the item away. Chapter 9. Difficulty Strategy for Student Presidents, 9. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What? Surprisingly, let Liang Xiaoxiao do such a sneaky thing. This matter still has some time, you need to complete the task that should be completed in the afternoon first. I got it. She reluctantly pouted and returned to the classroom. This afternoon's physical education class, Class 4 of them will be attending together with Class 1. Wu Qian held her hand and excitedly murmured, "Great, we can have physical education classes with our president soon." Before Liang Xiaoxiao could even speak, the boy passing by said, "Cut, Xiao Gu is in our class. Do you still need to go to Wei Xiaoqian, who pretends to be a flower lover?" The two turned their heads and saw three people led by Ling Muxiao standing behind them. The boy who spoke had a doll-like face, a typical sunny boy named Yan Dongyang. Another slightly silent and emaciated brother was Shi Heng, who was beside Ling Muxiao. The three of them looked at them like this, especially at the banquet of Dongyang. A while ago, he fell ill and took a leave of absence from school. After hearing that a girl had written a confession letter to Ling Muxiao, which was very explosive, he couldn't remember where such a bold girl was in the class. Now that he has seen me, he still has no memory of her at all. He stared at Liang Xiaoxiao without concealing his gaze, until she frowned and began to feel unhappy. "What are you looking at? You have a crush on me, right?" After speaking arrogantly, she pulled the dull Wu Qian away. Leaving Yan Dongyang stunned, he said, "Where did this girl get her confidence? She looks so." I wanted to say she was ugly, but upon closer examination, besides her somewhat ugly appearance and rustic black framed glasses, her skin is actually quite good, with some small freckles on her fair face, agile and cute. It's strange. When did this person appear in our class? Have I lost my memory? I have no memory at all. It's normal not to remember, she used to be quite low-key. After Xianyan finished speaking casually, the three of them also left the classroom. On the vast playground, several classes of students have already gathered sparsely. After seeing the students from class 4 coming over, several boys from class 1 immediately came to find Liang Xiaoxiao and the others, and made plans to play basketball together. Liang Xiaoxiao, as the male lead, has a high level of military strength. He once fought against more than a dozen small thugs in a nearby vocational high school with his own strength, and even won the key, establishing his reputation and becoming a fearless presence in that vocational high school. At Yalong High School, he naturally became famous and had a great relationship with men. Liang Xiaoxiao thought of his background and felt that this guy was also somewhat pitiful. He was raised by his grandmother, his mother passed away early, and his family was poor. However, he worked many odd jobs outside to take care of his grandmother. However, his true identity was the illegitimate child of the CEO of a listed company. His mother gave birth to him on a one-night stand, and after suffering several years of imprisonment, he was finally found back by his biological father. The biggest reason why he is willing to return to his father's side is to seek revenge against Wei Xiaoqian. According to the plot, the male protagonist naturally succeeded in seeking revenge, and the Wei family went bankrupt. Wei Xiaoqian was pursued by the police for committing many heinous acts. On the day of his arrest, he chose to intentionally seek death and was shot dead by the police on the spot. Thinking of the long and unpleasant plot in the future, Liang Xiaoxiao felt like her head was about to explode. Wei Xiaoqian played with the male and female protagonists in various twists and turns, and the author spent a lot of space repeatedly describing the various tortuous relationships between the male and female protagonists. After the class bell rang, the physical education teacher appeared and organized everyone to gather, then let everyone start running circles. Ahead, the students in class 1 had already started running, and the people from the two classes quickly merged together. The boys run quite fast just to finish the task early and play with themselves. During the last lap, Liang Xiaoxiao gasped for breath and began searching for Jian Xinran's figure. Her slender figure caught the eye of the crowd. As a solitary person with underdeveloped motor skills, she was left far behind by the people in her own class. Liang Xiaoxiao immediately ran towards her, his eyes scanning the surroundings before realizing that Wei Xiaoqian and Ji Chuan were standing under the shade of a tree on the side, leisurely drinking a can of cola in one hand. He was drinking cola while staring at her without blinking, as if staring at some prey, terrifying. Liang Xiaoxiao exclaimed with a tingling scalp, "This guy is staring at me so hard. No matter how good my acting skills are, it's difficult for me to continue playing this play, right?" Even though he knew he was watching her, he pretended not to know and acted recklessly. "Oh my goodness! Who will save her? Steady, I believe in your acting skills." Liang Xiaoxiao hesitated to speak, but in the end, he could only grit his teeth and run to Jian Xinran's side. After much deliberation, she finally reached out her foot quickly and stood in front of her as Jian Xinran turned her head to talk to her. Jian Xinran looked at her in surprise when she stumbled, as if she didn't believe her cousin would make such a move. Immediately after, the body uncontrollably fell down. Upon seeing this, Liang Xiaoxiao cursed inwardly and instinctively reached out to grab her arm, actively embracing her and blocking some of the friction downwards. Both of them fell down, and Jian Xinran pressed against her, holding on to the ground with her hands and a hint of pain on her face. However, Liang Xiaoxiao, who had suffered more force, gritted her teeth and felt as if the arm under her was about to break. Before Liang Xiaoxiao could regain his senses, a figure rushed over and helped Jian Xinran up, saying, Ran, how are you? My leg hurts." Her forehead was sweating, and she leaned against Liang Xiaoxiao's chest. Although her knees were skinned, they were much better than described in the original work. Liang Xiaoxiao repeatedly regretted the pain. If she had known it would hurt so much, she would never have blocked Xianyan for so long. I'll take you to the school clinic. Ling Muxiao's cold and stern face showed a nervous expression, and then he picked up the person horizontally. Amidst the screams or teasing of others around him, he ran away without looking back. Liang Xiaoxiao stayed in place and stood up with a grin on her face before Wu Qian ran to her side from a distance. Sleeping trough. What's your situation? Why did you all fall down? I don't know either. According to the lines of the original work, Liang Xiaoxiao would never admit that it was intentional. Are you okay? Wu Qian was about to check her condition, but Liang Xiaoxiao took a step back with her arm in his hand, shook his head and held back tears, saying, I'm fine. Just now I clearly saw that she deliberately stretched out her leg and tripped Xianyan. Behind, a girl following Jean Linger suddenly shouted loudly. What? It's really fake. The others instantly exploded, and those skeptical, contemptuous, and disdainful gazes swept towards her. Is this the girl from class 4? She always looks gloomy when I see her, but I didn't expect her mind to be so malicious. What kind of hairstyle? It's really tacky. Didn't she write a confession letter to Ling Muxiao? Chapter 10. Difficulty Strategy for Student Presidents, 10. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. She is jealous that Xianyan can be the school flower, and Ling Muxiao also likes her. Liang Xiaoxiao instantly became an ant on the hot pot. She bit her lip and exclaimed, It's not me, it's really not me. She burst into tears, some of which were acting and some were crying in pain, even she didn't know. Wu Qian saw her crying with a face full of grievances, and immediately felt a sense of justice burst out, saying, You guys have been targeting Xiaoxiao before. How can you believe what you said? Wu Qian's words made Liang Xiaoxiao a little nervous. Her crying performance was briefly interrupted, and she looked at Wu Qian more shocked than anyone else. Pushi. After watching the play for a while, Wei Xiaoqian suddenly sneered and stared at Liang Xiaoxiao's gaze, which also showed a strong sense of playfulness. As she watched her previously aggrieved face suddenly turn into a stunned expression, as if she had never expected anyone else to come forward and speak for her, she couldn't help but feel extremely novel. Ji Chuan saw him standing still indifferent while watching the play, with a posture of the emperor not being anxious about eunuchs. Are you letting someone take Xianyan away like this? No, what's there to see in girls' fights? Hurry up and chase people. How about the truth? I'll go ask Xianyan later and she'll know. On this side, Jinling held her arms in both hands and suddenly opened her mouth with some annoyance. That's right, only by asking clearly can we know. Xiaoxiao, don't worry, I absolutely believe you. Wu Qian held her hand with a sincere tone. The little sisters beside Jean Linger wanted to say something, but Jean Linger grabbed her and walked away. Even though this matter was temporarily flipped over, Liang Xiaoxiao finally relaxed his expression after everyone dispersed, feeling so aggrieved that he wanted to cry and walked to the side to rest. What a plot breaker. Why should I do such a thankless job? Alright, stop crying. There's still a mission. Wei Xiaoqian is going to find the female lead. Xianyan and Ling Muxiao left like this and never came back. Their relationship is heating up, and as long as there is no frequent disturbance from Wei Xiaoqian, they can quickly sense their feelings. Liang Xiaoxiao turned his head to look for the figure of Wei Xiaoqian. As expected, he was leaving the playground and walking towards the school clinic. She cursed and refused to move. I'm about to break my hand, what kind of bullshit mission are you doing? Don't worry, this little injury will heal you in a little while, ensuring that there are no scars left, okay? 002 also knew she was wronged, and her voice softened to coax her. Upon hearing this, Liang Xiaoxiao forced himself to keep up with the pain in his arm. In order not to be noticed, she deliberately slowed down her pace, walking one in front of the other on the school's shaded path, with withered yellow leaves swirling and falling in the wind, creating a beautiful scenery. But Liang Xiaoxiao didn't have the heart to appreciate it. As she saw him walking towards the left corner, his figure disappeared and he was not far from the school clinic. She quickly quickened her pace, but as soon as she arrived at the corner, a sudden figure blocked her path. "You! Why are you here?" She looked at him with some panic. Wei Xiaoqian stood there, his narrow eyes slightly closed, looking down at her from a high position. "I should ask you this," he said, slightly bending down, as if wanting to see her face up close. "What are you doing with me?" Liang Xiaoxiao's heart tightened and she unconsciously took 2 steps back. "Where did I follow you? Is this road only you can walk on?" She finished speaking confidently, her eyes flickering for a while, clearly showing a guilty expression. "That's not true." He smiled and his gaze fell on her arm as if nothing had happened. "Just now, you intentionally tripped Jian Xinran on the playground, but you blocked her injury. Why? Who said I did it on purpose?" Liang Xiaoxiao immediately denied it, her eyes bulging with confidence, but her actual anxious emotions were written on her face. He curled his lips and smiled, then extended his hand and lightly grasped her elbow. Liang Xiaoxiao was startled, and then he exerted a slight force, making a click on the area that seemed to be fractured. "Ah!" Suddenly, tears uncontrollably welled up that made Liang Xiaoxiao feel pain. But soon she noticed that after the intense pain, it seemed like her arms could move again. "Can you say something before you start?" She spoke with grievances and tears in her eyes, like a pitiful little cat with only a temper but not much. She dared not speak out and stared at him, because she was holding back the pain, with a hint of fear hidden in her eyes. Wei Xiaoqian was slightly stunned for a moment, and a bloodthirsty and excited dark light suddenly surged out of his eyes. The freshness he had never experienced before made his blood boil. I don't know if her crying would be more painful than now. That pair of beautiful eyes should be in a red and swollen state, and the face should continue to show that panicked and restrained expression, wanting to extend its claws to scratch people, but it has no killing power at all. Finally, just like the poor kitten that he had strangled to death with his own hands when he was a child, waiting on the brink of death for the final judgment. He smiled and continued to exert force calmly, causing intense pain to the already scraped wound on her elbow. A low moan of pain overflowed from her mouth, and this time she finally knew how to resist. Her other hand pushed him away in fear. Under the frame, those beautiful eyes stared at him with alert and frightened eyes, and their eyelashes trembled slightly. "You pervert." She trembled and cursed loudly. 002 also caught the strange emotional changes of the target character and panicked, saying, "Host, what did you do?" Wei Xiaoqian's blackening value has just increased to 90%. Liang Xiaoxiao was so aggrieved that she was about to cry. How do I know what happened to this crazy person suddenly? She didn't want to care if he wanted to ruin the relationship between the male and female leads anymore. She angrily turned around and ran away. At this moment, she just wanted to stay as far away as possible from this crazy person. Even when she turned around, she could feel the burning gaze from behind staring at her intently. On the other hand, Ling Muxiao came out of the school clinic with Jian Xinran. She had gauze on her knees, and walking was normal without any major problems. The two of them didn't walk long before they saw Wei Xiaoqian standing not far away. Jian Xinran awkwardly pulled her arm out of Ling Muxiao's hand. Upon realizing this, Ling Muxiao's eyes dimmed for a moment, and then his hostile gaze turned towards the elegant young man ahead. Wei Xiaoqian had now changed into his usual gentle and dignified smile. He walked over and expressed a few concerns. Jian Xinran said that her wound was not serious, so the atmosphere quickly reached a stalemate again. Just now, I seem to see that Liang Xiaoxiao intentionally tripped you, or did I misread? Wei Xiaoqian suddenly changed the topic with a hint of hesitation in his tone. Xiaoxiao should have been careless, otherwise she wouldn't have protected me either. Jian Xinran looked very confident, without any doubt that Liang Xiaoxiao had ulterior motives. Ling Muxiao frowned and reminded, Ran, Liang Xiaoxiao is acting strangely. It's better for you to stay away from her. Jian Xinran wanted to explain something, but in the end, she didn't say anything, just ensuring that Liang Xiaoxiao wouldn't have any feelings for her.